All right, I am recording, so you can take it away in three, two, one.
Hello, everyone. And in today's session, we will be discussing the 5 functions that all project managers should be able to effectively execute. You should be able to execute these regardless of your project size, regardless of your industry, or regardless of your work environment. So, starting with the planning competency, the planning competency can be defined as continuously preparing for the future and making decisions based on all available information, business data, and future events in order to align business activities with common organizational goals. Now, this method will mitigate risk and uncertainty within a project, as although we have to ensure the timely completion of a project and make sure it stays within scope, organizations still need to continue on with their daily business operations, although we have a project going on. So, for example, let's say that you are working in a food and beverage distributor that is implementing a new warehouse management system. So, in planning this project, you know that your busy season starts around the September timeframe within the holiday season for Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and that busy season will extend into January. So this becomes important whenever you are working with your vendors to create the project plan and also when staffing a project. We're going to talk more about staffing the project shortly. So next with organizing. So for organizing facilitates the organizational goals. Managers must organize tasks into departments and assign those tasks to employees, allowing their efficient resource allocation and to ensure that the policies and procedures are well coordinated. Now, going back to the warehouse management system implementation, uh, based on my experience, I would say that a critical miss in some environments is that when project managers organize projects, they keep these tasks and teams within the functional silos. So, for example, the IT staff will work within the IT departments and they'll configure solutions within this WMS application based on assumptions without consulting with the stakeholders that perform the activities on a daily basis. So, for example, those stakeholders that are picking in the warehouse, those people that are packing the goods, the individuals that are invoicing for those orders, they're going to know the functions that should be implemented within that WMS application. So whenever you're organizing a project, you need to ensure that all of these stakeholders are working together and collaborating. Now, if you don't do this, this is going to lead to rework, and that rework will result in overages from a timeline and a budget perspective. Now, we're going to talk about the importance of collaboration and communication throughout the course because that is important within any project, regardless of what industry you're in, what environment you're in. Moving on to staffing. Staffing involves the careful analysis of the business needs, the intentional selection, and the professional development of the personnel to fit the roles within the project to ensure the organization can meet those project goals as well as the strategic goals. So, although I come from the consulting industry, one of the tools that I often use and bring to every project is a skills matrix. So a skills matrix will outline all of the competencies, if you will, all of the objectives of the organization, and the individual stakeholders, the employees, will fill out this skills matrix. Now, with the same skills matrix, Their peers will fill out a skills matrix in a second iteration, if you will, to say what do they think the skills of their peers would be. And then in a third iteration, then the managers will provide their evaluation of that individual. So when taking this approach, you now get a 360-degree view of the strengths of potential project team members. I have done this often. I've found great success whenever you're staffing a project. And if any project pops up at a given time, we can pull out that skills matrix and we can see, okay, who are going to be the key players within this particular project. Okay, we do that a lot with sales engagements. So if we have a particular requirement for a client, and let's just say that we're working with a client in aerospace. We haven't worked in aerospace in 4 years. We can pull out that skills matrix and we can look at that skills matrix to see which employee has experience in aerospace. So that is where the skills matrix and this approach is going to be very important, very beneficial from a project management perspective. So for directing addresses the leadership, the communication, and the motivation within a project while offering guidance and clear, actionable feedback to allow team members to perform effectively. Now, you will hear about different leadership philosophies from different graduate school programs. And you note that I mentioned leadership philosophies instead of management philosophies. Now, that is intentional in that project managers are leaders. Okay. Now, there are a number of different approaches or a number of different philosophies, but in this example, I'm going to focus on transactional leadership, transformational leadership, and servant leadership. Those are my favorite. Now, with transactional leadership, you are driven by transactions. You measure by transactions. So for example, if I'm running a project in Amazon, if I'm a project manager in Amazon, I have to have a transactional leadership type approach. Because if I don't have a transactional type leadership approach, my wife is going to be very upset because our Amazon Prime order is not going to show up the next day. Okay. Now, with a transformational leadership approach, if you are implementing any kind of large scale change, and with many projects in supply chain management, we are implementing large scale changes. So you have to have this transformational leadership approach. And one of the key concepts to transformational leadership is to ensure that you get buy-in from the stakeholders. And one of the key things to initially do is to get their buy-in to tell them how this particular project is going to benefit them. And finally, my favorite leadership style is servant leadership. Now, you're going to hear a lot about servant leadership once we get into the Agile week. And within servant leadership, you are there to provide guidance into how can I make your job better? How can I make your tasks easier? There is really no management. The stakeholders are self-organizing, they're self-managing. You are just there to be their servant leader. Now, I always say that there needs an optimal leader, an optimal project manager is one that will be able to blend these different philosophies. Now, there's no one size fits all approach. So for example, Amazon, you have to have that transactional leadership competency just because of the environment. But you can blend this transformational leadership because Amazon's a very large organization. Just if you're operating a distribution center, you're implementing change in a very large distribution center with thousands of employees. So you have to blend those two approaches to have an effective project management approach. With servant leadership, You are going to guide, you're going to guide these project team members, and you're going to assist them and help them in self-organizing. So there are different approaches. Again, there's no one size fits all approach. The particular approach is going to depend on the organizational culture. It's going to depend on the actual organizational environment. It's going to depend on the project. Moving on to controlling. Now, for the controlling function, I actually like to rephrase this as monitoring and controlling, to align this discussion with the project management body of knowledge, in that the monitoring and controlling function is where we measure the performance of a project against the defined standards or key performance indicators. Now, I'm a big proponent of the statement of what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. And the same holds true within the area of project management. Now, within traditional waterfall project management, we have periodic steering committee meetings where we track the progress of the project, with the project stakeholders, with the executive steering committee, to say, are we on task? What is the burn of this project in terms of budget? How many activities are outstanding? How many issues do we have? All of those metrics are getting measured, and we're reporting on that during this steering committee meeting. Now, also within agile project management, we go through somewhat of the same tasks, but we do it on a daily basis with daily stand-ups. So we're going to talk about this again in the Agile week toward the end of the course, in that with Agile, we have daily stand-up meetings where we say what was completed yesterday, what was completed today, what are the roadblocks. So we get that continuous feedback loop, and it's still getting measured, but we have a more current feedback loop, if you will. Okay. Now, in closing, regardless of the type of project, these functions are essential to the success of the project and to the organization as a whole. Now, if you use these critical project management competencies as a foundation, I feel that you are going to be well positioned for project success, regardless of the size of the project and regardless of the environment. Thank you.